The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. I'd like to call the August 3rd meeting of the Local Government Commission to order. Cindy, I'd like for you to, we'll start with a pledge of allegiance. If you'll join and stand and join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary Marshall will lead us in our.
I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the old North State, love, loyalty, and faith.
With that, Cindy, can you call the roll?
Secretary Marshall is your person. Ms. Jacobs? Here. Ms. Virtual, thank you. Ms. Harris? Virtual. Mr. Bass is in person. Mr. Munn? Person. Mr. Paget?
Okay, Ms. Harris, hear us?
Ms. Harris, can you hear?
Ms. Harris says she still can't hear. I have a message from her, but I believe, Ms. Harris, can you hear us?
Mr. Mayor Paget, can you hear us? Mr. Philbeck?
I'm here and I can hear you.
All right.
I'm here. Can you hear me now? Scott Paget.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. And
Okay.
Treasurer Fallen. Did we get Ms. Harris yet? No, she's here. And is Auditor Wood joining in person?
Supposed to be.
Okay, just not here yet. But we have a quorum.
Okay, can you describe the meeting procedures and housekeeping items, please?
Yes, sir. Again, this is Cindy Aiken, legal counsel. We're using the GoToWebinar platform for today's remote meeting of the LGC. Are we being broadcast live over Facebook today? Yes. It'll come back.
I don't believe so.
Don't, okay. At any rate, this meeting is being recorded with the intent of publishing the recording on the website. The written minutes will continue to be the official record of the meeting. Please note that the microphones in this conference room and will pick up all sound, including whispers. So please engage outside the room if you need to have a private conversation. In addition, folks in the room, note that the cameras are positioned such that if we do broadcast live video, there could be some laptop screens that may be within range and could be seen. So just a note about that.
Cindy, we are broadcasting video.
We are on
Right now.
Facebook. Thank you. Those who are participating, please mute yourself when you're not speaking and identify yourself when you are speaking so those who are listening remotely know who it is. And our members know to identify themselves when making a motion or seconding. Please interject if you're remote to tell us if you're leaving the meeting and when you rejoin. Those need to be recorded in the minutes. This is still a remote meeting under an emergency declaration by the governor. All votes will be taken by roll call. With no objection, we'll continue to follow our procedure of a motion and second being deemed yes. Please note the agenda is posted on the department website, nctreasurer.com. Chair will announce any changes to the agenda as we go through the meeting. And again, we'll focus on just one speaker at a time to keep everything clear and audible to the public. That's it. Thank you. Oh, and we need to call the roll of our staff. So we have Sharon Edmondson is here in person. Tim Ramaki in person. Susan McCullen in person. Jennifer Wimmer, if you're online. Thank you. Louis Andrews is there in person. Debbie Tomasco in person. I'm Cindy Aiken. Okay. Check and check.
Thank you. Members, the conflict of interest statement requires you to take a moment to review the agenda that's been previously sent to you. Does anyone present have an actual potential or appearance of a conflict of interest as to the matters? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of July 13th, closed session meeting minutes, and also July 26th.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Here, a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Munn. Motion is second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Secretary Marshall? Aye. Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Harris? We'll come back. Mr. Bass? Oh, sorry. Mayor Paget?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
We have Ms. Harris audible to us.
Ms. Harris signed off and was attempting, I believe, to rejoin because she was having some audio issues.
Okay, so.
If she comes back on without objection, we'll give her a chance to record his voting aye on the minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, I'm calling about this Harris.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Do you approve the minutes?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Now I'll turn the meeting over to Sharon for a VUR studies and rate studies presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. We are fortunate.
Can everybody hear Sharon?
We're very
Yes.
fortunate today to have with us virtually Shadi Eskaf from the Environmental Finance Center over at the School of Government, but soon to be the Director of the Division of Water Infrastructure at DEQ, effective August 16th. So Shadi is here. I asked him to come make a brief presentation to the Commission and then be available for your questions about rate studies, merger and regionalization studies and agreements, and asset inventory assessment grant studies. Since we seem to have a lot of questions around those items that are being funded by the VUR, I thought it would be helpful to have an expert in the field be available to you for your questions. So I assume Shadi's with us, Debbie. All right, Shadi, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. My understanding is he does not have any slides. He's just going to make a verbal presentation and then be available for your questions.
Are we going to be able to see him?
And is there a way to make him? in
Is
the
he a
room?
participant in the,
He is,
and is he showing the screen?
he is.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, commissioners, for this invitation. I am sharing my webcam right now. Hopefully you all have a chance to pull that up. Should I wait for that or should I get started?
Shadi, if you could give us 30 seconds, please, we'll see if we can pull you up.
No problem.
Yep.
Well, now's not the time to probably figure that out.
So we'll start.
For those who are listening online, Auditor Wood has joined the meeting.
If it helps, I can start with introduction of myself while we wait for the webcam. Is that okay? Okay. Great. Thank you so much. And thank you again for the invitation. As you heard from Ms. Edmondson, I'm here to talk a little bit about primarily rate studies and what goes into rate studies, and a little bit of background and who I am and what I do might be helpful to provide a little bit of context. I've been at the Environmental Finance Center since 2004, and we're part of the UNC School of Government, so we work directly with a lot of local governments across the state on environmental finance issues. So really water, wastewater, stormwater, those are our primary areas of focus. And I've been working with local governments in the state and outside the state on water finance issues. And I say water, it means encompassing water and water together for many years. And part of that work involves working directly with them on assessing the rates that they're charging, and how do what rates they should be charging in order to cover all of their costs, We do a lot of direct advising. We do a lot of training on water finance topics. We work a lot with Local Government Commission as well as the Division of Water Infrastructure. As you heard, I'm actually moving to the division in a couple of weeks' time as a new director. We've also been advising a lot of topics that you've been discussing in some of the commission meetings about regionalization and the viable utilities. So we've been providing a lot of direct assistance to the state as well as to local governments. I'll speak briefly about rate studies in particular, and then just kind of open it up for questions. I've worked a lot with local governments on some rate studies, but I wouldn't say like I'm the I know everything on what all the organizations that do rate studies, what they do, but I'll give you kind of a brief outline of what is involved in rate studies and leave a lot of time for questions. Generally, when it comes to water and sewer rate studies, there is no one right way of doing these kind of rate studies. There are different approaches that some local governments like to take. The larger ones, the ones that can afford consultants, would hire a consulting firm that would do a very in-detail, very in-depth analysis. That most of the consulting firms that I know of follow the American Water Works Association, which is the professional association for water professionals. There's a manual that talks about cost of service studies, and they really go deep into the analysis, look at who's allocating all the costs of the utility down to who's peaking in usage, and how do you allocate the costs to different sectors, like the residential sector, the non-residential sector, and then charging appropriate rates so that you're equitably charging each sector of the customer base based on how much they're costing the utility to provide services. The principle there is really to look at the cost of the utility, all-encompassing costs. So that includes operations and maintenance, as well as future capital, building reserves, anything that you need to put into your enterprise fund. Allocate all those costs out, and then charge appropriate rates for each of the different sectors of your customer base to generate the revenues you need to cover those costs in the future. That's the really in-depth model that most larger systems would employ, and they would hire consulting firms. And I can't speak on behalf of all the consulting firms as far as how much they would cost. That definitely ranges by the level of service that's being requested of the consulting firm. Smaller systems, or even internally, sometimes the local governments would do analysis on their own and maybe not go too much into that level of detail. Most of them would look at what their budgetary needs are for next year. So all operations, maintenance, and ideally capital expenses too. Although we've seen some cases where local governments don't really budget their capital expenses, at least not in sufficient amounts going forward. So if they know they've got debt service, they'll budget for that. They'll budget for operations and maintenance, and maybe put a little bit for reserves or a little bit for capital. Sometimes not enough. They budget for those, and then they look at their rate and try to do a little bit of analysis to see whether or not they think the rates they are charging currently would provide enough revenues to cover all those expenses in the next year. When we do analysis for the local governments, we try to do a 5-year projection. So we look at their expenses over the next 5 years, and assume there's some costs, and we look at rates over a 5-year period as opposed to just 1 year, because it helps to kind of think about long-term longevity and viability in the future. I know that's how a lot of other technical assistance providers, so there are some organizations in North Carolina that provide assistance to local governments on reviewing their rates. For example, Rural Water Association and CERCAP, sometimes the councils of governments would also assist. And they do the same kind of analysis I just talked about, just kind of a general look at your costs, look at what you need in the future, and see whether or not the rates you're charging right now are sufficient, and if not, what are the rates you need to be charged to cover those costs. Some of those services can be provided for free at no cost of local governments from the technical assistance providers, depending on funding for them. So the Environmental Finance Center at the School of Government, we provide those services at no cost to small towns. I know CERCAP Rural Water also do the same thing. They're funded by federal agencies to provide these services at no cost to local governments. If you hire a consulting firm, obviously you would be paying for those services. But there's also a significant number of local governments that do this analysis internally, and they don't request assistance from outside sources. That's generally all I wanted to bring up in this kind of a brief overview of what rate studies involve, but I'm happy to answer questions at this time.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that information.
Hang on, Mr. Mann.
Yeah.
Hey, Shadi, can you hear us?
I can hear, yes.
And Mr. Bond has a background, and he'll tell you about that in 30 seconds, and so you'll know the basis of his question.
I'm just an old retired city manager and have seen a lot of rate studies. And one of the questions that we've had is some of these jurisdictions that we're dealing with are so small. Some of their populations are like 99 people. The customer base is so, I mean, and the rates that they're charging already are double or more than what you would find in the average city across North Carolina. So in terms of spending a lot of the money that we have for studies, we're just concerned about spending so much to do rate studies individually when it looks like the probable solution is a merger or some other kind of configuration where they can get economies of scale. And so where at the end of the process, or towards the end of that process, you would have for sure the rate studies to get all that straight. So I think my long rambling question is when you do the rate studies, do you do them early for all these little ones to just verify what you already know, or do you do it when you're dealing with a consolidated system?
Ideally, it's both. Ideally, you would start by looking at the rates before there's consideration or before there's analysis on regionalization, at least to know, especially for local governments that might have not raised rates in a while or may not have reviewed rates in a while, to study those rates. We've done this where we've gone to some towns. We've looked at what the rates are, realize that they haven't been budgeting for capital. Once we put in the capital expenses and what they need to be putting into the reserves, we notice that their rates need to go up by twice as much or 3 times as much as what they're currently charging, and they're already charging higher rates, like you mentioned, because they're small systems. And that spurs the conversation for potentially looking at alternative solutions, which includes, regionalization, whether that's interconnection with another town and not doing your own treatment, or consolidation, or some other form of regionalization as a whole wide range of services when it comes to regionalization. So that sometimes the rate study sometimes happens before looking at regionalization options because it spurs that conversation. But if there is going to be a regionalization study, having the analysis done at the point where you know what you might expect for rates and what you might expect for the costs for the consolidated or the regionalized system going forward, having both done, having an analysis looking at what the rates need to be if you're doing it on your own, or basically the status quo, what you need to be charging in order to maintain your own system, and also look at when you're consolidating, what are those costs for the consolidated systems, allocate them to each individual system, and then charge, assessing what the rates are. So if there's a merger regionalization feasibility study that's already been done, a rate study right after that would be ideal. Really, you could try to do it both at the same time. If you're not getting enough information together.
Secretary Marshall's one of the guys in the back of the system.
It's from
Somebody's calling.
Good music.
If anyone is connected by phone, so somebody who is dialed by phone has put us on hold, I believe. There we go.
Whoever was sitting that up a hold, you just gave us a great rendition of some awesome music.
Wasn't me.
Hey, Shadi, you're back. Oh, I apologize.
No problem. I hope that answered the previous question.
To some degree, I think the concern we have is originally you were talking about that larger jurisdictions spend a good bit of money and time because their systems are more complex and they spend a lot of money doing rate analysis. But for small ones, they do it by basically looking at their basic needs and then going with that. So is there a lighter version of some of this where we don't spend so much money on the front end and spend most of our money on the solution?
Yes, I think that the analysis, the type of analysis that the Environmental Finance Center and some of the technical assistance providers provide wouldn't be a very costly endeavor. Really, it does depend on how detailed you want to go into allocation of costs and how much time you want to go digging through a lot of financial records to try to break things down by budget items. You don't need to do all that in order to do an assessment of what the rates need to be. When you're looking at regionalized systems, it would be important to at least get an understanding of what the costs are going to be for this new model that's being proposed. If it's consolidated, if it's interconnections, how much is the how much volume of water you may be purchasing from another town, and what the price is going to be, and having an understanding of what how the price might escalate over time. So a little bit of information up front is needed in order to do a rate study. But once you have that, just basic levels, the analysis part wouldn't take too much time to do, and it wouldn't be very costly to do. And I have to be cautious, in saying that, because some of the regional systems might be very complicated system. If you have a county with 6 or 7 systems that are thinking about consolidating in some way, or merging, or creating a new utility authority, for instance, and connecting to that, the amount of work that needs to happen to assess what the costs are going to be for this new complicated model would be a lot more expensive than doing the rates analysis. So there's a little bit of cost that goes on right before you do the rate study portion. But it's possible to do a relatively quick analysis at not a high cost. And I think if consulting firms are included, it might be something, and I don't know for sure, I don't know if you want to quote me on this, but in the tens of thousands of dollars. I don't know if it can go any lower than that for very simple rate studies. They would have to kind of answer that question. But I would imagine tens of thousands would be kind of the range that one might expect for smaller towns.
Shadi, can I add something to that real quickly? With VUR, we have modified our approach a little bit with some of the studies, in that when you've got a group that is interested in working together, they are not awarding the rate study grants. We backed off of that, and we're just doing the asset inventory assessment grants up front. And then they're going to start with the rate studies and the merger and regionalization studies as a group rather than as an individual entity. But they're still going to need the information that Shadi was talking about, as far as what should the rates be. And I'll just use Eureka as an example. What should the rates be in Eureka to provide the service, have adequate reserves, and meet their capital needs, so that you've got you're comparing apples to apples. Because the rates in Eureka right now are just covering the operating costs. They're not covering a reserve, they're not covering a capital. Actually, they're not even covering all the operating costs. And so when we look at a potential regional solution there, the rate is going to be higher. That it's because you're not comparing apples to apples right now. Thanks, John.
Yeah, and to thank you, Ms. Edmondson, and to add to that, looking at, for example, we looked at Fair Bluff and Fairmont and some of the systems nearby. we did exactly what Ms. Edmondson was talking about. We were looking at what the costs are going to be for each of those systems to continue to operate under the status quo. We didn't just take a look at how they've done their rates analyses in the past. We've also added all of the capital infrastructure costs that need to happen in order to upgrade the system to the same level of what it would be if you regionalize the systems in some new model. So it add all those additional costs so that you're doing these kind of apples to apples comparisons that Ms. Edmondson is talking about. That is important. And again, that's where a lot of the costs of the study really is trying to estimate what those capital costs are going to be going forward for a regionalized system. You need to know that first, and you need to know how those costs will be allocated or how they'll be charged to each individual unit of government before you can do the rates analysis.
Any other questions? Ms. Harris or Mr. Philbeck, any questions from you folks? Shadi, thank you for being with us, and I think you'll have very quickly understood that the Local Government Commission, regardless of how large or small the VUR reserve is only interested in accomplishment, not just activity. And anytime that you can use a recipe to do something in another part of the state, anytime you can combine contracts to get rate study when somebody's already looking at one state of data that may involve some regionalization, just this is not OPM, other people's money. This is our money, and I think the better stewards that we can demonstrate, the better that we can demonstrate to the General Assembly that we're good stewards of this money, asking the tough questions and challenging assumptions, the more recurring this money will be, and that's good for you.
Mr. Treasurer, following up what you said, I totally agree, because part of the other expenditures likely to be a new pump station, a line that needs to be upgraded, because the receiving regional body will usually need to have that, and you may actually have to cross some boundaries and do some right-of-way acquisitions and things like that. So there you have to make sure that you have enough money so we get to the solution, not just spend money on studies.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I'll also add to what Mr. Munn just said. We don't have anything on our agenda today, but the inflation that we're seeing on pumps, on lines, on right-of-way is just staggering. $115 million projects coming in at 160. I mean, this is, I don't care how small or large the project is, this is a big deal. And so all of a sudden you have all this money has been spent on development, engineering, this, that, and the other. And then you get the price tag on it and kaboom. And then all of a sudden you can't do it. And that's why this is so important, Shai.
Thank you all for those comments. I hear you and I understand all these issues. I've been listening into a lot of the LGC commission meetings and SWIA meetings as well, and I've been working very closely with the division and with local government commission. I'm looking forward to building and continuing to build that strong relationship between the division and the LGC once I get started too. I know that relationship is really important, really strong. And I want to make sure that continues. And I hear those concerns. I'll be attending some of these meetings going forward as well.
Shadi, if you hang around long enough, Cindy may write a little ditty that has Shadi, SWIA, and VUR all in the same song. So got to hang around till Christmas maybe.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll next turn the meeting back over to Sharon for unit letters.
All right, the first item for consideration today is for the town of Ayden. And my assumption is we're going to take these individually. The town of Ayden is asking for approval of a financing agreement for sewer of $2.2 million. And I will turn it over to Susan to talk about their unit letter The town manager, Matt Livingston, and finance director, Joanne Floyd, are both on the phone.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. On June 17th, we sent the town of Ayden a unit letter related to their 2020 audits. The issues were related to the annual audit being late. We did not receive their 2020 audit until June 7th, 2021, and which was 11 months after the fiscal year end. Another issue was the town's general fund. Their fund balance available for appropriation compared to expenditures had gone down over the last 3 years and was at the current level of 22.49%. On June 22nd, we received a response from the town. It was a satisfactory response. They addressed the general fund balance issues, which had primarily been resulted because they were using their fund balance to balance their budget. And so they eliminated that, of the use of fund balance in 2022. And they probably did that, I'm guessing, because I don't know for sure. But I don't know if you're aware or not, but we actually looked at budgets for unit assistance, and of course, they're not on the unit assistance list. So let me back up. They also, and they eliminated their fund balance, budgeting fund balance for the first time in 14 years, which was it's a culture change for them. One that they desperately needed to make. They reduced some spending, reducing capital projects in the 2021 fiscal year. They are monitoring expenditures monthly and training department heads and increasing modifying their fund balance policy from 10% to 20%, which may still not quite be where it needs to be, but is certainly an improvement. The reports were late because of a delay or because of a staff turnover. They've since hired and have staff in place. But they've also put together an audit team to make sure that all of the audit responsibilities don't fall on one person. They are including the town manager, the finance director, and some other folks, including the town clerk as well, on that team. And they'll be meeting as well to make sure that those deadlines are met. Any questions?
Any questions for me?
Yes, please.
Okay.
What is their fund balance supposed to be? It's at 22.49, but what's the classification group fund balance? I do not know. So it's continued to decline.
It's continued to decline. And I don't have the information with me about what it should be.
Okay, so may I ask all my questions, please? So then I'm looking at the things that they've done to improve their finances, and they did budget fund balance for the first time in 14 years.
Yes.
So what's to say they're not going to jump back out there and do it once we approve this loan today? What's to say they're not? What assurances do I have that they won't jump out there and start doing it again next year?
No.
Okay. And then their second bullet says their reduction in spending, there are no new major capital items included.
Mm-hmm.
What about repairs and maintenance? This is where all these units are getting into trouble, is that they're not replacing their water and sewer. They're not taking care of their assets. And so then all of a sudden they got this big, huge expenditure. So not thinking that reduction in spending about no major capital items is giving me any comfort either.
That can be a very short-sighted way to balance the budget.
And then, I guess those are the two big ones. The other thing I would ask the local government commission to continue to put out there is that just because you lose your staff doesn't mean you can't go hire a CPA firm to step in and fill in the gap. You don't have to sit and wait and wait and wait and wait. But anyway, I do have concerns that as soon as we get them through this process, they will jump out there and start budgeting fund balance next year. And then I am concerned about the reduction in spending on capital expenditures, because now they're just setting themselves up to get in another mess.
They are on the phone.
They are. Ms. Floyd, their finance director, is on the phone. Maybe get the-
And the finance director of Hayden.
Matt Livingston.
Yes, sir.
We're here.
We're here.
Were you able to hear?
Yes.
We were. Yes, sir.
And would you like to respond?
I would. I understand the concerns that was received. I'm the new finance officer here. I was actually with Plymouth for 22 years, and I've never allocated fund balance to balance a budget. In my years of being a finance officer, I've always found other ways to do that, and that's what me and the new management have come in to do, is to ensure that this does not happen, that if rates need to be raised or other things need to be looked at, then we're going to look at doing that. As far as the capital purchases not being funded this year, it was capital expenditures as far as equipment and things go. We found that there wasn't a real need for those this year, and any in the upcoming future that is needed for any even vehicles or capital outlay equipment. As far as the maintenance of things, we have that covered in our budget.
I'm just going to say, this is Matt Livingston. I am a fairly new town manager here, and coming into the situation that I did know that there were some issues once I started looking at it. But I've been in this situation before where the fund balance was low, and I know what it takes to get it back up again. We had this situation when I was in Wallace, and that was an area that didn't have a lot of money, but we tightened the belt and we improved the fund balance. I don't know where they are now, but and I've also been in Rollsville, but that's a different kind of environment altogether there. I know the importance of fund balance. We're not going to just arbitrarily go back and start using fund balance again. I'm educating the board on fund balance, and the 20% is too low. We realize that, but we got to get them to start committing somewhere, and this is the start for us to get us back going in the right direction, as opposed to the trend that's been here in the past. This is an agreement that we had, that they made prior to, for the sewer extension. So we're committed to doing this project because we've got about 800 new homes and some commercial development that are waiting on this sewer line.
Same old crap. Paint themselves into a corner, and then they gotta have it. Gotta have it.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck, second.
Second.
Secretary Marshall, second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Treasurer, can we confirm that, I believe that was Mayor Paget, not Mr. Solberg, is that correct?
It
Mr. Philbeck. I'm sorry, I apologize. One guy's on the airport, the other one doesn't.
So Mayor Paget with the motion and
Yeah,
Secretary Marshall.
second.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Auditor Wood,
Aye.
Ms. Jacobs? Aye. Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Bass?
Aye.
Mr. Munn?
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye. Motion carries. Aiden, I think that you heard the questions specifically from Auditor Wood. You heard of her earned skepticism, not specific to your city, but other things that have come before over the years. And I would admonish you to make sure you listen closely and make sure that figure out what's right, get it right, and keep it right.
We will.
Absolutely.
I've been in this position before, and skepticism's there, but and they can doubt us, but we're going to bring it back up, and we'll see. It's going to take a few years, but we're going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is
Thank you.
City of Brevard.
Mr. Treasurer, we'd like to delay that one due to our recent development and move on to Walnut Creek, and we'll come back to Brevard. This agenda, yes.
Okay.
So, Town of Walnut Creek, they are asking for approval for a revolving line for some sewer improvements, $1.75 million. They also have a unit letter, and Councilperson Stoney Sloan is on the phone representing Walnut Creek. Questions for you?
Okay, thank you, Sharon. On March 5th, we sent a unit letter to the town of Walnut Creek addressing our financial concerns. They had a couple of issues that we noted. First, the village had not contributed the required amount to the police officers' 401k, the separation allowance that's required under North Carolina General Statute, Chapter 143. They also did not contribute an amount of money that was required for the Elgers retirement system for employees. The second issue that we had for them is that their general fund showed expenditures that were that exceeded the amount that had been authorized by their budget. The town responded to us on July 21st. And it was a brief response, but it was satisfactory. The payroll issues had been resolved and corrected, and the town has made contributions in the current year to both Elgers and 401k as required for employees. And then item number 2, the town is reviewing budget to actual revenues and expenditures each month, and amending the budget is needed to make sure that they're not repeating, so that they are sure that they are adequate appropriations for their expenditures. And they've also are having the mayor, or the manager, or a town council member approve all expenditures and cash disbursements to make sure that there are adequate funds available. So that was a satisfactory response as well.
Questions from board members? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to take staff's recommendation regarding City of Brevard?
So moved.
Walnut Creek.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion second being made. Folks from Walnut Creek are on the phone, I'm assuming?
Councilman Sloan is on the phone. Mr. Treasurer.
Okay. Councilman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. Obviously, I'm the chair of the Local Government Commission. This is the treasurer, but I'm also chair of the Teams and Elder Board. So this issue about not making payments in the retirement system, what's the likelihood that will happen again?
Well, that was, it certainly wasn't a case of funds not available. It was just an administrative oversight. But
Okay.
we squared that away, and all the contributions are up to speed.
All right. Thank you for answering. Motion second being made. No further, if any further discussion, if no further discussion. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Secretary, I would like to add a couple of things but based on what the agenda shows. In order to make sure that we had sufficient, right now we're operating in the black on our enterprise fund, and in order to make sure we had sufficient dollars to cover the upcoming loan, we slightly increased our water and sewer last year, so the rates are now 35 and 60. And we continue to operate in the black, so we're confident we'll have the money available to repay this loan.
Pictures froze.
Okay, I froze as well.
No, I'm froze.
Are you frozen as well, Mr. Paget?
Yes.
Yes, okay. There must have been something in the meeting room.
The picture just went away completely.
Exactly. I see LGC meeting August 2021.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
Okay, maybe they're going to come back on. It must be something in the room.
Hey,
We're all-
everybody. Hey, everybody. I apologize. Brian Jackson here. Just letting you know, it appears that we are indeed having some technical difficulties in our conference room. The
Okay.
laptop that we're using to broadcast apparently has stopped working. And so we're going to address that and get to it ASAP. So please be patient, and we appreciate your cooperation.
Thank you.
Ms. Jacobs, are you able to hear us?
I am able to hear you.
Okay, and we have, let's check quickly here.
And I was just speaking to some of my other virtual panelists.
Okay, and you, for anyone who's virtually connected, we did drop from Dogwood, and we're just trying to regain all of our connections here, so.
Sounds good.
Shoot, they can hear it.
Only on your machine.
Okay.
You need to go back to click share. No, you'll want that. There you go. Close that. Circle again. I'll just see meeting.
So we're still broadcasting, I'm finding out.
Yeah, from this machine.
Yes, and I can still hear you.
Thank you.
And Tony Sloan from Waller Creek is still on the line.
For everyone on the call, we do apologize. We're having a technical difficulty. If anyone could just hold with us one moment, we'll be reestablishing all our connections and we'll be restarting momentarily. Thank you, Councilman Sloan.
Max. Hey, Max. Wait, anybody? Yeah. Yeah. Well. Well, man, this is some bad stuff. I'm so sorry you got it, or if you do have it. Yeah.
Is anyone still on?
Stony Sloan from Waller Creek is still on.
Okay, thanks. I just
We're
want-
still working on it.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen-only mode.
Testing audio.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yep, but you're getting some feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a little bit of an echo.
What about now, Brian?
Still echo.
Go ahead and mute that.
Home stretch, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed this intermission.
Okay, testing audio again.
I
Go
can
ahead and
hear
give us
you.
one more.
Yeah, on my end, it doesn't appear to be an echo.
Try one more time, please, Dan.
Can y'all hear us again?
There is a slight echo, but yes, we can hear you.
What about now, Brian?
Still, yes.
Ms. Jacobs?
Yes.
So Ms. Harris, Mr. Philbeck, Mr. Paget, are you all with us still?
I am. Ms. Harris.
Is it not working on speakers?
And Mr. Philbeck, you may be on mute. I see you're talking, but I don't know if anyone can hear.
You're correct. He is muted.
He's muted, yeah.
Now, you can hear me now.
Yes.
Yes. And we can hear those who are connected via their personal laptop can hear everyone speaking. We're just trying to reconnecting the audio in the conference room right now, and we'll be set to go. Again, apologies, and we appreciate everyone's patience.
Not hearing the audio.
No problem, thanks.
So we are still broadcasting. The call is still open. Everyone can hear everyone speaking. We're just waiting on Dogwood conference room audio to kick back in.
Here's now. Still no audio here.
Yeah, but it's not as clear, but we can. And maybe you just do dial-in, use the audio dial-in code and skip the computer audio.
And we are still broadcasting for everyone in the room.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered an attendee in listen-only mode.
Debbie, you are going to need to disable your computer audio now since you're going to be using the dial-in. Just so Dogwood knows, we still cannot hear you.
Okay. We're working on it.
We still can't hear you. You may need to disable the ClickShare device from her computer so that she's not connected with that audio system. Thank you again, everyone, for your patience. We are still working through the technical issues in the Dogwood conference room. We are still waiting for Dogwood to connect.
Okay, I just opened. When you're connected.
Thanks, everyone, for your patience. Once again, please remember that this is a live call, so if you do speak, it will be recorded for the live session.
Do you have a picture of,
Okay, I think that works. Go ahead and give it a test, but we can hear you. Please go ahead, Dogwood.
Can you hear us, Brian?
Yes, sir, we can hear you with no echo.
Okay, but you are controlling audio now.
It's a telephone call. We can move forward.
All right, Ms. Jacobs, Ms. Harris, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, and I am here.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck and Mr. Paget.
This is Mike Philbeck. I can hear you. I don't see anything, but I hear you.
I think we're gonna call that a win.
Wait, what about Ms. Harris?
Ms. Harris, are you there, Ms. Harris?
Yes, sir, that makes sense.
Ms. Harris, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have Ms. Harris, we have Ms. Jacobs.
What about Mayor Paget?
Mayor Paget, are you with us?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Philbeck, you said you were with us?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Oh, he needs to mute. He's the one. He's the one. He's the one. He needs to mute.
Needs a way to get a quorum.
You can't count the same number. Right now, Mr. Treasurer, I have everything. That's in the, I don't need to read what's in
To a corner, brag on.
I want to see.
Okay.
Wait.
Okay, yes, and we are broadcasting again in the room, we are broadcasting. We're broadcasting to all of our fellow panelists and also to the public. So we, Mr. Treasurer, again, I apologize. We are ready to go though. We've established that our members are virtually are with us. Ms. Harris, Ms. Jacobs, Mayor Paget, and Mr. Philbeck are with us again virtually. We will be audio only for the remainder of this. We won't be able to.
Okay.
So this is Cindy Aiken, and we're going to conclude the vote for Walnut. We need Gavel.
No. Call,
We have,
Mr. Penny, Philbeck.
yes, all right, so we're voting on the Walnut Creek, debt application. So, Ms. Jacobs,
Aye.
thank you. Ms. Harris,
I need that signing. Ms. Harris.
Ms. Harris. We'll come back. Mr. Philbeck,
That in.
and Mr. Mayor Paget.
Can I help you?
No, Mayor, okay,
Mayor Paget?
Aye.
thank you. And one more time, Ms. Harris.
All right. We'll just,
Okay,
okay.
all right, well, the motion carries.
Motion carries. Members, we've been notified, Sharon Edmondson, that we're going to withdraw the application to the city of Pemart. And with that, Brother Wilson County.
Thank you, Treasurer. Wilson County is before you with a financing agreement for a school. $13 million, and they also received a unit letter. I believe the folks from Wilson County, I think they're still on the phone. County Manager Nicole, Assistant County Manager Ron Hunt, and Finance Director Angel Landrell.
Okay, on May 20th, 2021, we sent the Wilson County a unit letter. The letter was related to an internal control deficiency that the auditor defined as material weakness. It was a repeat finding from the previous year that their accounts were not, their bank accounts were not being reconciled regularly and timely. And Wilson did respond to us on June 4th. They responded that the internal control deficiencies, as far as not reconciling the accounts, were truly a factor because of several issues. They had experienced employee turnover. And then when they filled the position within a reasonable time, COVID disrupted ability to train, and then the work responses were delayed. So they have since engaged a CPA firm who has the necessary skills, knowledge, and experience with governmental units to assist their finance office, so those delays won't recur. And we consider their response acceptable and satisfactory.
Any further as recommending it? Good. Members, I called Wilson, North Carolina. Obviously not the county, but there's a lot of good positive things happening in Wilson, and I felt very comfortable that the conditions that led to them being on the list are being rectified. So, with that, I'll accept a motion.
I have some issues, please. So supposedly COVID was the reason for this last year. What was the reason for the year before that they're not reconciling their accounts on a monthly basis?
Good point, because it is a repeat.
It is a repeat finding.
Yes. I would look to the unit to answer that question.
Thank you.
Angel Landrow, the finance director is on the phone.
Is that the only person?
I'm on the phone. Can you hear me?
Is this Angel?
Yes, ma'am. This is Angel Landrow, the finance director.
And you also have Ron Hunt and Denise Stenangle with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, you have the floor. State Auditor, ask a question. Thank you.
My reply to the question that was asked is that that was my second, actually my first year as the finance role of the director for this county. A lot for me to learn and absorb. I came in the middle of the year. So there was a lot of new challenges that I had to overcome with also new staff stepping into new positions. So it almost sounds like a redundant story, and it is not. But the first audit finding was a result of my new position, me being in the position new, with only 6 months to take on the responsibilities with the year end.
Follow up.
Yes, ma'am.
It's the county manager on here. So this is for the county manager. How in the world do the county commissioners run their county 2 years in a row when the accounts that are supposed to tell you what's going on are not reconciled?
Ma'am, as the finance director, this is Angel speaking again. If I can answer that question, I would love to.
No, sir. No, sir. I want the county manager to answer that question, please.
Sure. You're going to explain what you get to then, what you present to the commissioners annually?
Yes. Yeah.
He's going to start and I'll finish.
Yeah. We do provide our commissioners a monthly reconciliation of our ledgers. And at the end of the year-end close, what occurred is that our general fund account, it's a very large account that it's impacted by many of our departments throughout the county. A new employee began to reconcile that account in the middle of the year. Again, with new employees learning this process, it's overwhelming for the size of this county. So Denise, the county manager, and the assistant county manager, along with our commissioners, were fully aware of the training conditions of our employees. And this is not due to a lack of ability to do the job, but a lack of inexperience in the government world. One of the biggest concerns and issues that we continue to run in the county, or at least in this county, and I run into, is that we continuously have positions that are being filled with employees that come, or people that come into our positions with zero government experience. So we constantly have to then retrain people the way to, on how to process and how to deal with government expectations, the LGC and this at the state level as well. And it is no easy task for myself nor our department. This is what the decision why I decided that in the best interest of this county, I reached out to a CPA firm that has extensive background with government units. She has been actually a key person that has, it's helping us right now. And my plan is to put this person on board through the duration of whatever it takes for us to make sure that we are doing everything the way we're expected to do it according to general statutes.
And to follow up with this is Denise Steinagel. To follow up with that, the commissioners receive monthly financial statements, and they include all the budget amendments that have approved for the previous year. So that piece they absolutely receive.
That is not, excuse me, that is not the question I asked you.
And make sure you, and whoever's speaking, would you identify yourself in relation?
I'm Denise Steinagel, and the county manager. One of the things that we did do, because yes, that is disturbing for us as well, because we're better than this to have this occur twice, is by allocating additional funds. The commissioner did that for the CPA firm to come in, and they have been here this fiscal year to assist and do oversight and to ensure that when we do those financial statements and we do this closeout, that they are correct and current.
So let me try this one more time. I asked, how is it that the county commissioners can run a county as big as Wilson County when your books are not reconciled, your accounts are not reconciled month after month after month? You don't wait until you get to the end of the year and it's time to do your audit to reconcile your accounts. I asked a question, how is it that the county commissioners know what's going on in the county so that they can make the right decisions without reconciled account balances?
And my answer to that would be that I would have thought they were reconciled monthly. We did not learn that until the finding was occurred. But what we have done to fix that going forward, because you are 100%.
That's not the question I'm asking you. And the audit report said you had not been reconciling your books for months, for 2 years, every month for 2 years. Is the audit report right or wrong?
Ma'am, that is not my understanding of the finding. My understanding of the finding, this is Angel Landau speaking, is that they were submitted to the auditors late. They were not submitted on a timely basis. And what the auditor, in my opinion, was referring to was our year-end close.
That's not what your finding said. Okay.
County Wilson, is there anything you'd like to add to Auditor Wood's administration?
Are they being, Susan, let me ask you, are they being reconciled monthly? Were they being reconciled monthly?
That was our understanding, that they were not being reconciled monthly.
And I don't know how anybody as big as County of Wilson can run themselves, manage them without the right numbers every month.
And if they did not agree with what their auditors put in the findings, they really should have pushed back at those.
Which again tells me they don't know what's going on. Thank you.
Secretary Marshall and then Mr. Matt.
Exceedingly timely, is it that we could maybe postpone this and get the chairman of the county commissioners on to answer your questions, Madam Auditor?
I'll entertain that motion.
I second.
Should I entertain that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll make that motion that we postpone this for 1 month until the county commissioners chair or their representative can come and respond to these questions from the auditor.
Further discussion, Mr. Bass?
So number one, is it time sensitive that a month's delay is going to mess them up? And then second question, was Wilson County's answer moving forward, so that this doesn't occur again, that Wilson County has hired a CPA, they contracted with the CPA to ensure that this isn't happening again? Sorry, I'm having a slightly hard time hearing y'all, but I think that was your answer. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So what, this is the treasurer, what is, in order for you to have a better shot of getting this approved by the LGC, tell us what you consider the risk being in delaying this for a few weeks.
We have everything set up to close for later this month. So I think we'll have to go back and we can certainly do that, but and we'll be glad also to send you any additional information. We would prefer to go forward, and gladly will provide any information that you need. But it will delay us because our closing dates and all of our documents are set up for this month.
14, 6 weeks.
Go ahead. All right. Motion and second to delay this until the next meeting. Any further discussion?
Mr. Treasurer, I want to be sure, Secretary Marshall, you had said you wanted to table it for 1 month until the chair of the Wilson County Commissioners or the representative can answer the questions that the auditor has presented.
It would have to be for 6 weeks to the next meeting.
Sorry, until the September meeting.
This is Scott Paget. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
No, I see everybody's point. It seems to me that they have admitted that it was a mess. I don't know how much more explicit Mr. Angel could have been. It was a mess. If I'm hearing correctly, things have been corrected. As of now, things are corrected. Is that right, Mr. Angel?
That is correct, sir. We currently have in our staff the CPA, and her name is Rebecca Myers, who's assisting us in making sure that everything is in place. There's recommendations, there's changings, there's things that need to occur, but our books are in standing order. Right now, we're still processing year-end entries, and we're processing, reviewing our numbers to make sure that by the time the auditors come in here, everything is checked off our list, and we will not have this issue again.
Okay, so when are the auditors coming? What are you referring to?
Mr. Paget, my point was not what this finance officer is trying to do. My point is that the county commissioners have let this go on for 2 years. It is their responsibility. And I wanted to bring it down to say, because the fact that you've got a new finance officer, if he goes away, you don't necessarily have new county commissioners. So are they gonna let this thing fall through the cracks again? So the onus is not on the finance officer here. It really steps back to the county manager and the county commissioners who have let this go on for 2 years, and that is my point.
And I appreciate that point. I thought I heard a lady speaking there that was on the county commission. Am I wrong?
Is she county manager?
County manager.
County manager.
Oh, so there's not an elected official on the phone.
There is not, but we ensured that each of the county commissioners personally signed the unit letter that we sent back. So they were very clear about what was being asked and what, so they knew what was going on.
Okay. Thank you for answering my question.
Again, my point is they didn't find it, they didn't come up with it in the first place. They didn't recognize for 2 years that they didn't have the numbers they needed to run their county.
Mr. Chair, would it be possible to, if we could get a county commissioner on, sooner, that we call a special meeting to hear it rather than making them wait 6 weeks? I hear with Secretary Marshall.
Y'all are gonna, just go ahead and pass it. Y'all gonna pass it anyway, go ahead.
Well,
Today, wasn't the reason to wait 4 months. So we have a motion and a second. Can I take it back?
Well, she made the motion.
Well, sorry. That motion can be moved. Can I take back my second? They show up and say, we'll pass it anyway in 6 weeks or today, it won't matter. It will matter.
That's not what I'm saying, by the way. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just asked a question. And as far as I know, I can ask a question without somebody knowing my motives for what I asked.
That's not what I was doing.
Asking a question to let anybody off the hook.
I didn't clearly understand something, Treasurer. Is the CPA firm doing the monthly reconciliations?
Susan? Now?
Yes.
You'll have to ask the unit exactly what her role is. It looks like she has the ability to do them, but she also has the ability to review them. And these are the accounts receivable or account balances that were late for 2 years. So it may not be bank accounts. No, Can you think of the finding? I won't think about bank accounts, Okay. I'm just saying accounts, period. Account, yeah, okay. Whether it's receivables, payables, accounts, it doesn't matter. Okay. Budget actual.
So are we asking if they have a system in place? Because I think that's really what we want to make sure that there's a system in place that going forward can keep them from this situation that they're in now. And I don't know if we have enough information at this meeting to make that determination.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I heard I'm sorry, this is Susan McCullen. I am not excusing the accounts not being reconciled for 2 years. That is I think Honor Wood's question obviously is very simple. How did they make decisions like that? But the fact that they had a vacancy in the finance office and a new employee doing the reconciliations is a recipe for disaster, because there are an enormous number of cash transactions that go through a county, and the fact that those things once they get behind, it is just a huge task to touch them up. There is a lot of complexity there. I'm not excusing what the county did. I'm just saying that I can understand their situation that they get. And I do know Rebecca Meyer as well, Rebecca Myers, and she is a very capable person that works with a lot of local government. So I'm just put that out there.
And I just want to say one more time, my issue is with the county commissioners trying to run something as big as Wilson County with no numbers for 2 years. I get why it all happened. I get it. But the fact that they didn't bring somebody in sooner or recognize that they were trying to use numbers, if they were using numbers, that weren't reconciled monthly is a big issue. And the county commissioner is not going to change. You have another finance officer tomorrow, you have another county manager tomorrow, the county commissioner is not going to change. And so you got the same problem today that was the problem last year, is my point.
Yeah, and it is, we see that constantly, where everywhere there's a delay, accounts receivable, or any sort of account reconciliation that is a material weakness. We see that constantly. They're making decisions without
good numbers.
Without good numbers. Even if they're looking at budget national reports every month, those numbers
are no good.
Are no good.
And that was my point.
Yes.
That it's the county commissioners. It's not the current finance officer now. It is anything, people coming and going. It is the county commissioners that have let this go on for 2 years. And they want to say it's COVID-19, yet COVID-19 didn't exist the year before. So again, I'm not sure anybody's taking this as seriously as I think they should.
Mr. Bass? No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think it is valuable to hear from the elected officials. I was just wondering, 6 weeks is a long period if they're trying to close. If we could do it in a shorter amount of time, if it's possible. That was my only concern.
And I guess my point I was saying is that when they come back and tell us whatever reason it is, the majority of this council will vote. And so I'm just saying, why delay it? That's all I was saying.
Well, the issue is, I think that in the 4 years I've been here, and y'all been here longer, that when there's issues, the elected officials say, well, staff screwed up. Staff says, well, there's new staff. It's always going to be pointing the finger at somebody else. And I think at some point, to your point, the elected officials are where the buck stops. They've got to be held accountable eventually, and they've got to come before us and answer. And they can't just put a new finance, director on the phone and not take responsibility for it themselves. It's not fair for this guy who's new to be in the hot seat when he's new.
Right.
May I mention something else? We are in the process in fiscal of developing some board training that units that are on our unit assistance list, their boards will be required to take. We'll be doing that in face-to-face, but we'll also be doing it virtually for those that are they're not on our unit assistance list, so they wouldn't be required to take it, but there will be training at some point that boards will be required to take for that very reason. They're ultimately accountable for those issues, and they need to know it.
But if a county commissioner comes and has to answer some of these questions in front of us and they're on the hot seat, I can guarantee you it's not going to happen again.
Yes. Yes.
That while they're elected, they're going to remember that they had to come up to Raleigh and answer some of these things, and they won't do it again.
Yes.
Well,
And again, I'm sorry.
If I may, this is Angel Landau. Can I have the floor?
Yes.
I can honestly say that the accounts have been reconciled monthly. I don't know why we continue to go over this. I have said in the past, and I thought I did, that their accounts are being reconciled. Where we ran into some issues was trying to complete all of our statements and balance all of the accounts at year end. This was the delay, trying to get all the documentations to the auditors on a timely manner. But we do provide to our commissioners, I provide to our commissioners on a monthly basis a report that they receive. And there's public records of this information on our website, and we can also provide this to you if you would wish to have them. But the accounts are being reconciled. When we look at the year end, and there's things that throughout the year, there's entries that need to be adjusted, accounts that need to be adjusted, things that go into the wrong account, and in reviewing so, we look at year-end process a whole lot more closely than we do throughout the year. Because then we're trying to balance not just the bank reconciliation, but also trying to balance our property tax, or D&P, et cetera, many other accounts that are very large in nature. And that's what took us the longest time here, and then again the following year, with new challenges and new concerns with other accounts that were not a challenge on the previous year.
What is he saying? He said that, is he talking about the bank reconciliation being done every month, but it's all the other accounts that are not? Because that's what it sounded like you just said.
That's what it sounded like.
Can I read the finding? Because I think it's pretty illuminating to me anyway. The actual finding in the audit says that the general ledger was not reconciled to subsidiary ledgers on a regular basis, and year-end journal entries were not put. So it's not just year-end closeout. It's on an ongoing basis. Those accounts were not being reconciled. And I think Susan brought this up earlier. If they disagreed with their auditor's finding, they should have taken that up with them before the report was published.
Yes.
So that's all we have to go on is the audit report.
Why didn't the fiscal staff work with Angel and his staff and look at what they did and what exactly the finding was and see if we're satisfied?
This is Cindy Aiken. Before the motion has been stated by the chair, is a mover. You can withdraw it, modify it, leave it as is.
So I was just going to ask this. Could you vote yes, contingent on it is just the year-end closing versus a monthly vote? If y'all find out that it's a monthly thing, it goes away and they have to come back. We have to talk about all that.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So can you?
She has the floor.
I will modify the motion to withdraw the motion and a substitute motion that, you said it better. That, we have, Sharon
Approve this.
Sharon,
Contingent.
this is contingent upon the fact that we determine that it's stated, and I'll say, okay.
That the fiscal staff determines that the accounts were reconciled monthly, and the only real issue was the year-end closing.
Right. That's my motion.
I second that motion.
And if not, it'll be on the September agenda.
If not,
Okay.
September agenda.
Okay.
With the county commissioners here.
Yep, with the county commissioners here.
Right.
Yep.
Members on the phone, have you heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Angel, we'll be contacting you to arrange some time for you to send us the documents and us understand. We'll have a remote meeting and figure that out, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Main thing is.
Wait a minute, we haven't voted.
No, I'm
You're welcome.
All right,
Maybe we should go back to CPA though.
Angel, it's, this is State Treasurer, just to be very clear. I don't know how to say this without it being inelegant. Don't make the time fit the chore here. If what has been done violates the spirit of this motion, this second, don't try to convince us otherwise if that's not what really happened. So whatever LGC staff asks you about, just answer it directly and honestly, and then we will take that answer, mold it into this motion, and determine whether you can go forward as a result of what we're getting ready to approve.
Understood, sir. I want to say that I absolutely have no intention of hiding anything from anyone. It is not my character. And I do like to be quite transparent and honest in anything that I do. It's not only who I am, but it's also my faith that I stand in. So.
Okay. Okay, well, Angel, I wasn't saying hiding. I'm just saying make sure that staff is clear to you about what the member's motion says as a relation to you fulfilling this contingency. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. We have a motion, a second on the floor again.
Yes.
Uh, any further discussion?
Because I think we just want to be sure that we have the motion exactly as we want it. Okay. It's a motion to approve contingent upon LDC staff determining that accounts were reconciled monthly, and the only issue was year-end close. If the issue is beyond the year-end close, then the item will be on the September agenda with attendance required by the county commissioners.
Right. Perfect. Should be a reason why I can't come in first.
All right, that was that Marshall and second Wood?
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing this, clerk will call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Bass?
Aye.
Mr. Munn?
Aye.
Mayor Paget? Back, Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Mayor Paget?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
That's like the Olympics. There's nobody in the stands, so they fire the shot and it echoes, and then everybody thinks it's a missed false start, and everybody stops. But there was what's going on, right?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they fire the shot. There's nobody in the stands, so it echoes back at them as they're, and then everybody, half the people stop, and there wasn't a second gun.
Oh, come on, track and field.
Yeah.
So they lost all that adrenaline in the go, and then they stop.
Yeah, Italy wins.
At least I have some to blame on why I didn't come in first.
Oh, that'd be a whole agenda item there.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I have no idea where we are.
We just got through the four, I'm a unit, but now we got a consent agenda.
Number 17.
All right. I got it called back.
Your script, not just yet, your order of meeting.
Oh, okay, thank you. Great. Hasn't been the case always, but we are happy and excited to introduce our DOT speaker, who's going to give us a short presentation about Garvey. And Lewis is here to talk about the council of state approval that occurred this morning. So,
Mr. Treasurer, I'm going to, we have some DOT staff here. If Louis would like to introduce them, well, I would just say here virtually while I unmute them to present. Mr. Treasurer, if it's okay with you, given the issues we've been having, does everyone have a copy of the presentation, the members? If not, we can grab a quick copy as opposed to sharing it on the screen. It might just be more
I think just proceed.
quickly that way. Okay. Louis, would you like to introduce who's here?
Yes, I'm Louis Andrews, Director of State Debt, and from DOT we have Stephanie King, Chief Financial Officer, Kim Padfield, Director of Accounting, Michelle Overby, Manager of Funds Administration, Van Alderbright, Director of Division Planning and Programming, and Matt Lane, Director of Finance.
And right now, just Ms. King is unmuted, and I'm working on unmuting the rest of the DOT representatives. Ms. King, are you with us?
Yes, hopefully you can hear me well.
We can.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. King. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're very happy to be with you this afternoon to give you a quick update. We are preparing to sell some new money, Garvey. For those not familiar with Garvey, it stands for Grant Anticipation Revenue Vehicle Bonds. It'll be Series 2021. We're very happy to say that we've gotten some state and federal approvals, including the Council of State this morning. And the par amount for this issuance is expected to be around $245 million to fund approximately $305 million in transportation projects. We are hearing that projected total interest costs will be around 1.74%, which is very good. And with those funds will be funding PE and right-of-way for around 9 highway construction projects. And this will be our 8th Garvey bond issuance since this program began in 2005. Moving on to slide 3, if you have it available, they meet all the eligibility requirements for federal aid. The projects are included within our current STIP, and they meet the priority of interstate maintenance needs and or improving travel service. And just a word of note that turnpike projects are eligible for the Garvey program. Slide 4 shows the listing of those 9 projects. And you can see a STIP number. There's various counties that these funds will be used to do I-40 widening in Orange County. Another one's Winston-Salem Loop that will be let in December 2021. So it's some significant project activity here, most of which are for the construction phase of our projects. And if you do get a hard copy, you can see the map that shows our active projects and the proposed projects that I just mentioned. And if you see those that have the asterisk beside the STIP number, it means it's just additional Garvey proposed based on the existing funding on some of these projects. So moving on to slide 6. As I said earlier, to date we've had 6 new money Garvey issuances and 1 refunding, dating back from 2007 forward. And currently we have $875.87 billion outstanding on our books of projects that are underway. Slide 7 shows all the completed Garvey projects that we've done through this particular time frame, and you can see how they've helped meet the core mission of our department throughout the state. So from the western part to the eastern part of the state, you can see the impact of the program. Slide 8 shows the summary of the Garvey projects, and there's a column within this that shows the various amounts that we're proposing to help fund these projects. So you can correlate it to the map, the STIP number, or any prior year Garvey bonding, and then what we're proposing for 2021. So again, that total amount, we have it equaling that $305 million. Obviously, as we go through the process, we'll make that amount based on what the final closed numbers are. As I mentioned, Council of State approved it this morning. We begin rating agency calls this Friday, and hope to have pricing the week of August 25th with an expected closing mid-September. We're thinking now it may be September 16th, but we're very happy to be working with everyone over at the State Treasurer's Office and Federal Highway to get these projects funded. And we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Louis, do you have anything to add?
I just want to add that state debt section recommends approval.
Thank you. And just wanted to remind members of the LGC, the Winston-Salem bypass has been in Fayetteville for the last 17 years. So we're glad that it's now. When I brought this up to former Senator Tony Rand, he would just shrug his shoulders and say, "It is what it is." Right? That's what he would say, wasn't it? It is what it is. So we're glad that the loop's finally coming around Winston-Salem. So, Susan, thank you. I hope that you saw that the Treasurer's Office put out a very positive press release about Secretary Boyette and y'all's team about 7 or 8 weeks ago, and thanking you for focusing on figuring out what's right, getting it right, and keeping it right. And we're tough graders, and on the downside, and we're also tough graders on the upside. So we appreciate the partnership that we've had with you and the auditor's office on behalf of the taxpayers and the road using public and the vendors who support DOT. So thank you and your team. And I love getting these emails where you're paying back 100 million here and 100 million there back into the highway trust fund. I do smile
Yes,
when I get
sir.
those. Okay,
Yes.
so
We're trying very hard.
yeah, I'd like for it to get back above a high water marks, which I think was $1.423 billion. I'm not exactly sure, but that sounds right to me. But let's get that highway trust fund back up. So thank you. With that, I'll see if any member has any item Thomasville through Wayne County that they'd like to pull off for separate consideration. Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept a motion from the consent agenda from Thomasville through Wake County. So moved. Second.
Second.
Just to make you nervous, you don't want to pull off Wake County? All right. So I have a motion, second, any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
We have a motion by Mr. Bass, second, Secretary Marshall. Auditor Wood. Aye. Thank you. Ms. Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harris. Ms. Harris. Mr. Munn.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Paget.
Aye.
Bill Beck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Ms. Harris, are you there?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Just gotta help. All right. Motion passes. We now have the consent agenda done. We're going to hear a brief overview from Tim regarding Washington County, and then briefly from Cindy to review the SEI information in your packet for the LGC designee.
Yeah, the Washington modifications, the bank is lowering the interest rate, so they're going to have savings of over $400,000. So it's significant. And we appreciate those banks working with our counties and lowering the rates go down.
Thank you. And Cindy?
Yes, thank you, Cindy Aiken. And in the packet, as we've had other times before, the Statement of Economic Interest evaluation letter for Tanisha Jacobs, who is Secretary Penny's designee and is participating in today's meeting. Again, this is just to follow the state statute requirement that these are included in the minutes of today's meeting, just as a reminder to all LGC members to make sure you review your own financial, personal, business contacts for any possible conflicts of interest in the future, and always bring them to our attention and ask questions if you have doubts, which you're all very good about doing. So we appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now to Susan. Time to keep our attention on Eureka, Cliffside, Robersonville, Kingstown, and Pikeville update.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to talk first about the units that are under the financial control of the LGC. So those 6 that are listed in your agenda. In the interest of time, I'm going to not speak specifically about Eureka, Cliffside, and Pikeville, or Spencer Mountain. There are updates for all of those except for Spencer Mountain attached. If you have any questions about those in your agenda, please don't hesitate to let me know. Just reach out to me. I'm going to talk about Robersonville and Kingstown because I need to get you to vote on some things. Specifically, Robersonville, they have a new town manager that began working there on July 12th. and have hired a finance officer that will begin working there on August 9th. So some really good hirings for the town. Of course, we're continuing to be involved. We're actually the finance officer, of course, but they will begin to assimilate that person in. So it just looks, that's a very positive development. The town's also in the process of purchasing a bucket truck for their electric department. This purchase was included in the 21-22 budget ordinance. It's being financed through KS Bank, who finances all of the town's vehicle and equipment purchases. And I have the attached documents that are required for you to vote on the resolution. And so it's included in your packet today. Also related to the town of Robertsonville, I have a updated or a budget amendment for the 2022 budget. They are going to draw down $3,500 of their approved emergency operating grants from DEQ. You may remember they got a total of 105. They used 30,000 of this previously, so this is the use of additional 3,500 of that. They are hiring a engineering firm to help them do a cost study on their utility funds to determine how to best move forward at that in the most cost-efficient basis. Sharon, we want to vote for these all at one time?
Without objection.
Okay, all right. So I'll go ahead and talk about Kingstown as well then. The town of Kingstown is working with Isothermal to, the field work has been completed for the 2021 audit now. And I think that's backwards. The town the field work's been completed for the 2020 audit, and the town has begun gathering requested information for 2021. LDC staff is continuing to negotiate with the town of Shelby regarding the outstanding sewer payable to Shelby by Kingstown. We'll bring that resolution to you when we get there. The town has also entered into a contract for solid waste collection and disposal. This was budgeted in the 2022 budget. So I just need the commission to ratify the services contract. This is a recurring contractor for the town. And then for all of the towns, just for your information, we are in the process of developing fiscal accountability agreements that will help us begin to develop some strategic goals for these towns in preparation for our eventual exit. We'll have a series of goals, and we'll work together with the towns to achieve those goals. And then as we achieve them, we'll reassess where we are. But hopefully we can begin to long-term. These are not short-term contracts, but or agreements. But hopefully we can begin to return some of these communities over to local governance. So any questions for me about any of the units?
Is there anything to add?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to on the resolution and budget amendment to Robersonville and the resolution regarding Kingstown.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Munn. Is there a second? Second being made.
We got a second on the phone?
That was Scott Padgett, I think.
Thank you. You think or you
All right.
vote?
All right. Motion second being made. Any further discussion? Before we vote, just wanted to
thank the LGC staff. They're doing heroic work in all these communities, and obviously partnering with the state auditor and her staff, and school of government, their staff, and to some degree the League of Municipalities. So thank you for all the work you're doing on behalf of these towns. And motion is second on the floor. The clerk will call the roll.
All right, this is for Robertsonville, resolution to approve their financing contract with KO State Bank, the budget amendment, and the Kingstown resolution to ratify a contract. Munn Patches. Auditor Wood. Aye. Marshall. Aye. Ms. Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harris. Ms. Harris. Come back. Mr. Bass.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Ms.
thank you.
Ms. Harris there.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Motion carried.
Updates on Spring Lake and Scotland.
Okay, Spring Lake. You have a summary of the current status of the fiscal accountability agreement in your packet. At the bottom of page 2, upcoming actions, wanted to highlight a few there. We are continuing to meet with unit officials and monitor the monthly financial reports, making sure that they are complying. And we're going to make sure that continue to monitor their progress towards the goals. We also are going to conduct training with their governing board on August 9th at their regularly scheduled meeting. This was a high priority for our goals that we set in the fiscal accountability agreement. The unit has submitted documentation and monthly reports to us as requested, but we have not, if you'll notice, the financial status update information for June, even though we've received some information, that data is not filled in, but due to the delays, the uncertainty associated with ongoing investigation, we didn't necessarily feel like we could rely on those numbers at this point, so we didn't put them out there. Town of Spring Lake is complying with us. The interim manager is complying with us, but that issue is ongoing, as you know.
Thank you. Any questions regarding those updates? Now I'll turn the meeting over to Sharon for a resolution regarding Wilkesboro.
All right, you have a resolution in front of you for the town of Wilkesboro. This is an enforcement action of 15925, not 181C. 25 is where we can compel the unit of government to hire additional help to get their records in order for audit. At the June LGC meeting, the auditor, Wilkesboro is 2 years behind on its audit, soon to be 3, with the 2021 audit coming up quickly. At the June meeting, we discussed this issue with them as part of the meeting. The auditor stated that the 19 audit would be done by early July 2021, and that the 20 audit would be done by the end of August. I believe that was actually the finance officer that made that statement. It's August the 3rd. We don't have the 19 audit yet, so obviously this timeline did not work out for them. So this resolution is to compel them to hire whatever resources they need to get these audits completed as soon as possible, and also to provide us with a detailed, updated timeline of how they're going to get 19, 20, and 21 done, so that the 21 audit is submitted on time.
Alder Wood.
Do we know what their issue is?
Yeah, I should say Finance Officer Bob Burness is on the phone also, so I'll defer to him in just a moment, but I believe for whatever reason, the 18 audit was, well, obviously it was significantly delayed. The subsequent years audits are going to get done much quicker. My issue now is that we're seeing more of the same behaviors. It'll be done next month. Next month comes, we don't get the audit. So is it the finance officer? Is it the books are not in shape? Is it, I mean, do we know what the problem is, or we just can't get an answer? There were issues, I believe, with the books not being ready for audit in 18. There were also issues with delays in, well, not having enough staff, because the finance officer is also the assistant manager. And they did hire one additional person in this new budget year in finance. There were some issues with their contract accountants being delayed because tax season got pushed off, another month this past year. Prior to that, I think it was really just records and not having enough resources focused on making it a priority. So the resolution that we would be voting on, because we say they have to hire whatever resources it takes, but how will we know what the resources that it takes? I'm wondering, they need to hire CPA firms to come and get the books caught up, concentrate on nothing but that. Are the books caught up? Somebody's holding this up for other reasons, more nefarious. I'm just trying to get a feel. Bob, are you still on the phone?
Yeah, I'm here, Sharon.
I'm talking.
I appreciate the conversation. I would start with the assurance that I don't have anything nefarious going on. I'm not sitting on the 19 audit holding it up with the hopes that ARP funds come my way or something of that nature. I do feel as though I am very close on the 19. As I've been sitting in this afternoon, I've been back and forth with my auditor. We're down to some of the finer pieces that are left on the 19. From my perspective, and I got a copy of this resolution this morning, so I also would like, I guess, some clarification from y'all. From my perspective, we're trying to pick up the pieces of what was, a misstep a while ago, and it takes time to get those back together. If the pace that I'm operating at is unacceptable, then I will, I have a outside CPA resource, but he doesn't just do my books. He works through tax seasons, which continue to get altered and changed. And it makes the timing of that more difficult. But if I need to find, and oddly enough, I've had my auditor recommend to me Miss Rebecca Meyer, who I heard mentioned earlier in this call, as somebody who's able to kind of step in and fill the role of somebody who would help me to expedite this process. I'm happy to comply. I will comply. I'll work through all the points that are listed on the resolution. It's my goal to get this taken care of additionally.
And I guess that is my point. And this is State Auditor Beth Wood, again,
yes,
that I don't, we say hire the resources that are necessary. Yes, that's exactly what my expectation is, being 3 years behind. That the expectation is that you hire somebody and put them strictly on catching your books up so they can be audited and getting the audit done. So that's, I'm just trying to kind of figure out how the resources that are necessary is a little vague. And so I'm trying to figure out what's wrong. You're telling me it's not having the time to catch the books up from a problem that started in 2018. So again, what I think is going to be acceptable from my perspective as a member of this commission is that you hire somebody designated to do nothing but get your books caught up.
Sure.
And you're hiring a CPA firm that's got taxes to do, other units, other, clients.
et cetera, they're
Yep.
not what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the Greg Iveys of the world, the Rebecca Myers of the world, who you hire them, they come in, and that's their job, to do nothing but get your books caught up.
Okay. And that's very fair, and I appreciate the clarification. One of the other points that I see in the resolution here is the anticipation or expectation of y'all that I be available at the September meeting with, sort of our roadmap moving forward. So, clarification of that point will allow me to better suit what the expectation is of your group at that September meeting. And I certainly would anticipate 19 at the very least being into the LGC by then, if not approved, as well as us having enough time to identify a firm of that nature to help get us over the hump.
And I'm just speaking for what it's going to be satisfying me. I cannot speak for any other member of the commission, but I do want to see, if you pick somebody, their timeline. With a contract that's going to back that up, we'll probably need the timeline first and see if we are in agreement with it, and then move the contract from there. But I'll tell you this, there are many CPAs who miss their deadline, and everybody thinks that's okay, and that is going to stop being the case. So whatever anybody signs off on, they need to be able to deliver.
I understand.
I hear a motion to approve the resolution.
Hello.
Jeff Paget,
Yes.
second.
Motion and second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Auditor Woods, was that you? Second. Okay, Paget and Wood. The will defer resolution to enforce 159-25. Secretary Marshall? Aye. Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Bass?
Aye.
Mr. Munn?
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Pola?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll ask members of the commission to make a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A1 to discuss information made confidential by General Statute 132-1.4. Before I ask somebody to make that motion, what are our house mechanical parts of this?
For the folks in the room, we will reconvene in another meeting room for the trial and RFC. And for the folks online, we ask that you completely disconnect. For our commission members, we ask that you disconnect from this meeting and connect to the virtual meeting set up for the closed session. Please make sure you completely disconnect from this meeting before we connect.
Is that in Triumph?
Yes, but we have to vote.
Okay. And members, after we come out of closed session, I'll be asking for a motion to adjourn. If anybody, interested party or is listening in on the local government meeting.
Okay, well, so for us on virtual, do we need to try to enter back into so we can just make that just adjourn, or can we? And
No, we have enough votes here.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, I entertain a motion that we adjourn and go into closed session and give everybody 5 minutes to get down there and do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion second being made. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
That was Bass and Munn. Auditor Wood? Aye. Secretary Marshall? Aye. Ms. Jacobs? They probably disconnected.
It's probably already off.
Ms. Harris? Mr. Bass? Oh, sorry. Ms. Mayor Paget?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck?
Aye.
Treasurer Paul?
Aye, we're adjourned until 4 o'clock in the Triad room.
just wrapped up. They literally just went into closed session. I had one of them, at some point, one of the dial-ins put everybody on hold. So we had to listen to their hold music for a good 10 minutes. They had a meeting happen, the meeting kept going, but I was sitting in some room with 3 or 4 of them.
They do other towns, or were we the only focus of their meeting?
We were the only resolution. They
Graduated. Congratulations. So,
Just so everybody knows, this is still an ongoing call, so please make sure you're muted.
Put your umbrella.
Are we still on this line?
We've gone into closed session. It's a decline.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
Wait a minute.
I hereby adjourn.
We have the first and second, Mr. Treasurer.
No, first and second.
And
Auditor.
Auditor Wood.
Tim has motion to pass.
Mr. Bass,
Tim has second.
moved by Tim Remoto. Okay, we are going to, we're still broadcasting, so Mr. Treasurer, you gavel us out, right? We're finished?
I did.
All right, Wood Bass, what time is it, Debbie?